Hello, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to segment two here with Shep Hyken and List and Selly. Lid with Giants TV, we're talking about customer service, and let's just jump into our second segment here with a question for Shep here. First of all, Shep, introduce quickly yourself, and we'll go to Liz, and we'll go forward.
Sure. My name's Shep Hyken, and I'm a customer service and experience expert. Work with companies on developing loyal relationships with their customers as well as their employees.
Good, great to have you. Go ahead, List and Selly.
Hi, I'm Liz. I'm hanging out with you from Salt Lake City, Utah, and it's great to be here.
All right, and Dallas here. I know this is where the taxi driver was when
Yes.
Shep Hyken. Do you actually ever see him since then? And no,
I've lost track of Frank.
did you?
I saw him for several years as he drove me around, but then he went to work. Actually, he bought a telephone company, a
Oh.
small little installation repair type phone company. He didn't buy like a huge telephone company. But, there's a whole story behind that as well. But at last I heard he was doing really, really well, and I'm sure if he's taking care of his customers in that business the same way he took care of his clients in the taxi cab business, the ones he drove around, I'm sure that he is flourishing compared
Excellent.
to others.
That's great. Let's talk about recently something that's happening across the board of the hotel business is the utilization of mobile check-ins, mobile devices now more than I know my hotel, the Renaissance Hotel, has started using it as part of the Marriott brand just not too long ago. I know Hilton does it as well, and they're looking into possibly where you won't even have to stop by the front desk. You were just going to go up the elevators and go up to your room. Talk to us about that concept and how is that going to impact customer service?
Wow. Well, I'm not sure how that last technology is going to work, but I'm kind of excited. It kind of ties to the whole Internet of Things that maybe your phone is going to control a lot, such as opening the door to your hotel room. But this whole thing that you're talking about reminds me of just the simple concept that's becoming really, really strong right now, and that is customer self-service or self-service customer service, however you want to put it, uh, in that you're asking the customer to do the work. And guess what? Customer doesn't mind doing the work as long as the work makes things easier, better, more efficient, saves the customer time, because that's what it's all about, is making it better for the customer. Couple of comments here, and I don't know how you're experiencing it at your hotel, but let me ask you. Do you see I guess I'm going to call it mobile check-in, or
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure what
Yeah,
you're
that's what
referring
it's called.
to.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that's what's called mobile check-in. Do you see customers using it a lot, or guests using it a lot?
Well, it's used a lot in a market in the markets such as Chicago, New York, LA. It's being used a lot in those markets where there's probably specifically airport properties. So you're looking at efficiency more, and you're looking at we were looking at statistics recently, and it's a fairly new program. So for my hotel, we're looking at on an average business day probably about 10 to 15, which is not a lot. But when you're looking
Oh,
at New York, some of the hotels there, and then LA, Chicago, they're getting between probably a fair number, 80 to 90, possibly. It's only gonna grow. So to answer your question, that's where we're looking at.
right. So here's the point. It's, especially at your hotel, it's a low number. And I think if you get to the airport properties, the reason those numbers may go up is because people are used to using mobile check-in devices, such as their smartphones, to check in on an airplane. And as soon as they realize they could start doing it at a hotel, they go, okay, it's basically the same thing.
Hmm.
What there is a learning curve. And let's go back to the airline example. We were talking about airlines. It took a long time for passengers to learn how to buy their tickets online. So what the airlines did is they said, we've got to get the passengers to start doing this. It's more efficient in many different ways. It's more efficient for the customer as well as us on the airline side because, for all the economic reasons of perhaps, using equipment and making less mistakes and the passenger being able to look at their records and their travel plans. But what happened is the airline said, let's make you a deal. If you use the mobile device, or not mobile, your computer, to check, or not just check in, that came later, but to buy your ticket, we are going to give you an extra 500 or 1,000 miles for that trip. All of a sudden, people are going, oh, okay, I'm going to try it out. And as soon as they tried it out, they realized it wasn't that difficult, and they started to do it more and more and more. Finally, there was a tipping point where that's how most tickets are bought today. Okay. By the way, back in when I started traveling for my business, which was in the 80s, you bought a ticket, and it was a paper ticket. And there, at some point in some trips, you actually went to the airline's ticket office, and they had many of them spread throughout different cities, and you would actually get your ticket confirmed before you even went to the airport. I mean, that was the way you did it. It was just easier to do it that way. And there's a lot going on. Today, you just go online, buy the ticket, boom, reservation made. Then they said, hey, check in online. You don't have to wait in line at the airport anymore. And guess what? People started doing it. Airlines offered the incentive. They basically, through incentives, trained their passengers to use the technology. I think that's what's going to have to happen in the hotel industry. So, and how it works and how fast they get to it, I don't know. But there will be a tipping point. I'm going to bet it's not going to be in the next month. It's probably going to be in the next year to 18 months where more and more guests of a hotel start using that check-in device. And I only caution one thing because it's really important. That is that the hotel doesn't lose that human touch of still being able to look eye to eye with the guest as they're using that device, checking in, say hello, let me know if you have any problems, let me know if there's anything you need, we're here to take care of you.
Right, and I'll touch on that point in just a second, but because I have several examples of what our brand is doing. Liz, jump into the conversation. What's your thoughts on that from what your observations are or thoughts into the conversation?
Shep, as I listen to you talk about customer self-service, I have one concern. How do we assign ownership of responsibility in our organization when customers are serving themselves? We can't place the ownership on the customer. It's their responsibility to take care of everything. Do you see an issue with this?
So this is an easy one. You just have to make the accessibility to a human being extremely easy. If you're on a website and you're dealing with a question, you're going to the frequently asked questions, or you're going to videos that they've created, and you are still having problems, it should be very easy to find the email address or hit a button for instant chat or a phone number that will instantly get you to someone, or the ability to email. By the way, with the idea of emailing, I mean, if I'm working on a project and I need help right now, I'm not looking to wait 3 and 4 hours to get an email response. I actually just wrote an article, and the cartoon is that I wrote to go along with it. I always write a little graphic cartoon. Basically, it says, if I wanted an answer 2 hours from now, I would have waited to ask the question for 2 hours. You know?
Yeah, I love that.
So, but that's the secret, is make sure that there's a human person or some instant relief if there's a problem. A friend of mine said, he was talking about Delta Airlines specifically, and this is a while ago. He said, I just had the greatest experience on Delta Airlines. And I said, what's that? He said, I was able to buy my ticket, check in. Basically, I didn't have to deal with one employee until I finally got to the airplane. Now, he wasn't knocking the employees of Delta. What he was saying is they've created such an incredibly great system that it allows him to do business, you know, in a very streamlined and efficient manner. And of course, if there's a problem, they're there to back it up.
So I want to kind of go back to the point where we're talking about, you know, how does that translate? How do we keep the human element into the service aspect when we have all this technology out there, which was my original question. How do we, as service providers, how do we continue to do that? And I was on a conference call, and one of my favorite lines on that conference call, the person said, you know, we are maybe creating some level of efficiency. You're pressing less buttons on the computer. The transactions are less from what you have to do as a hotel operator. But please don't lose that human touch, the service element that you're talking about. And we've seen some examples of how some of the hotels in the system are welcoming those guests because it's a fairly new thing and they wanted to keep the wow factor in. So some of the hotels had some really kind of a cool pictures, so they took it and they put it out there, and some had some balloons, some of them that decorated the desk with a mobile phone, just to kind of keep this energy on a positive level. Some of them took like a kind of a team picture with the guest. And to me, I'm a visual person, so just seeing that translates to me, like you were saying earlier, is that yeah, we're making things efficient for the customer because we know some people are just in and out and they have business meetings to go to, so they're not necessarily wanting to check in. But please don't lose that brand identity and the customer service of it. So that's to kind of answer your question in terms of how the brand is really rolling it out from a service
Right.
aspect.
And either you or Liz asked something or mentioned something about whose responsibility is it? Are you putting the responsibility on the customer? And the answer is, I don't think we are. I think what we're doing is giving the customer a tool. The responsibility of the customer goes back to the company and any employee of the company that the customer contacts. So if I happen to call you, Tal, and you're the guy, I don't call you specifically, but I call down to the front desk because I'm having a problem, and let's say I'm having a problem with my lamp not turning on and off. Well, guess what? You're probably not the guy to come up and fix it. However,
Right.
you're not going to probably say to me, oh, you know what? You need to hang up the phone and call this number. No, you're going to take the information and you're going to say, I'll make sure somebody comes up. And then you hang up with the guest. You call your maintenance department and make sure that they go up there. And then maybe you even follow up with a phone call, because what you don't want to do is lose that human touch. I think it's a great idea if somebody comes in and they use that mobile check-in and they don't really talk to anybody at the front desk. And again, it's the Internet of Things, where your phone might actually open your door to your hotel room. And then imagine that 45 seconds, minute later, the phone rings and it's somebody from the hotel saying, hey, I noticed you used mobile check-in. I noticed that you got into your room, and I just wanted to make sure that you're happy with your room. And I think that's a really cool way of adding another touch point from something that's been somewhat automated and taking some of that human element away.
Yes, that's actually something that we're doing on a daily basis, not only with mobile check-ins, but we've done a couple of other things, such as a welcome card from all the staff, and then a
Mm-hmm.
small amenity to just really appreciate them, because I think that not everybody is the same as a customer, but just the care, the sense. Everybody likes to be cared for. Everybody likes to be acknowledged, and those things never go away. I don't care how efficient our systems are. I think it's key to understand that there is a human element after all, and what people take. I don't think people go back home. Here's my point: people don't go back home and tell their wife or their children and say, I had such a great mobile check-in at the Marriott the other day. So that kind of goes to experiences. But Shep, thank you so much for being here this evening. I know you've got a busy schedule, and congratulations on your being the National Speaker Association president, so you have more on your plate. So I appreciate the time.
Well, it is my pleasure, Tal. Always love it. Liz, great hanging with you, and just love these Google Hangouts. So anytime you want to do another one, just let me know.
Will do. Thumbs up. Liz, thank you so much for joining us as well.
Thank you,
Always a
guys.
pleasure. Thank you. And we'll see you on the next one, guys. Thank you so much.
All right, can't wait.